You are watching Channel Africa Conversations.
These visits happened in a manner that would, I think right now when he thinks about even requesting to see his personal doctor, he probably doesn't want to go there because of the manner in which those visits were conducted. He's had his moments when he couldn't get out of his cell, when he couldn't get off the bed.
And we are seeing what happened to Kizza Besigye on the soils of Kenya did not just happen to Kizza Besigye. Few months before his abduction and rendition, there were 36 members of his party who were arbitrarily arrested in Kisumu, city in Western Kenya, forced back to Uganda through the border and charged with different, terrorism-related offenses. Most of them were beaten, tortured, and the offense is that they were in Kenya doing, training, which they were being accused were, to actually carry out terrorism-related offenses back in Uganda.
Hello and welcome to Channel Africa Conversations. I'm your host, Peter Ndoro. Uganda's veteran opposition leader, Dr. Kizza Besigye, remains in detention after nearly 9 months behind bars, with his bail recently denied. He's facing controversial treason charges, raising serious concern about judicial independence, the abuse of law, and the shrinking democratic space in Uganda. Dr. Besigye, once President Yoweri Museveni's personal physician before emerging as his most prominent political rival, has contested 4 presidential elections and became a symbol of defiance against authoritarian rule. His abduction from Kenya and subsequent unconstitutional trial before a military tribunal and prolonged detention without trial have sparked national and international alarm. As the 2026 general elections draw closer, his case has become a litmus test for Uganda's democracy. Rights groups are warning of increasing repression. His lawyers continue to challenge the legality of the proceedings, and his family are raising concern about his deteriorating health. Well, joining me today to unpack the situation, we are joined by Dr. Olive Kobusingye, who's a medical doctor, a surgeon, and the younger sister of Dr. Besigye, and also Roland Ebole, who's a regional researcher for Uganda and Tanzania at Amnesty International, who's been observing the trial closely. Together we ask, what does the case of Dr. Kizza Besigye tell us about the state of democracy, rule of law, and human rights in Uganda today? To my guests, to all of you, thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to Channel Africa Conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for having me.
So good to have you. Maybe let me start with you, Dr. Olive. It's a difficult time for you, I guess, because for you it's very personal, given that it is family that's representing, I guess, a lot of what Ugandans are feeling. Take us through what you see as Dr. Besigye's representation of Uganda.
Thank you very much, Peter, for having me on this conversation. And yes, you're right. It's very personal. And it's difficult. This is not about Dr. Kizza Besigye being arrested or abducted last November. It's the latest of a long string of arrests, violent ones, of incarceration that leads to no trial, of just all manner of abuse that has happened over the years. So that when we come to this day and we say his health is deteriorating, it's not something that's just happened over the last few months. It's just a build-up of years, of decades of harassment, of oppression, of abuse. And of the very many times that he has been dragged to the courts of law, there's never been a conviction. Many times there's not even a trial. The state loses interest, or So this has been a pattern. It's just that maybe this time there have been added, for instance, the abduction. He's been before a general court martial. This wasn't the first time. So yeah, we have to look at his current imprisonment in light of all that has happened over the years. And currently, he and his colleague, Ebole, and many other people that have wound up in prisons, in safe houses for being in opposition, this has really been the pattern that the government has, over the years. This is their modus operandi.
You're not Dr. Besigye's personal physician, but you probably have been able to see him a bit more regularly. And being a doctor yourself, you can see what you can see. What is his state of health at this time?
Thank you very much, Peter. So yes, other than the prison's health personnel, I certainly am the doctor that's seen him most frequently. I see him once or twice a week. And over the last several months, these visits are not, they are behind glass, and one doesn't quite get a sense of being in the presence of the other person. But yes, I do see him. I also see him when he comes to court, of course, but he's only had 2 visits to his personal doctor, and these visits happened in a manner that would, I think right now when he thinks about even requesting to see his personal doctor, he probably doesn't want to go there because of the manner in which those visits were conducted. He's had his moments when he couldn't get out of his cell, when he couldn't get off the bed. He's had moments when he maybe was too frail to sit up. He wasn't eating. He's had better moments when he's looked stronger. But over time, one sees that that this has really taken a toll on him. And I think sometimes when we talk about health declining, people think mostly about physical health, which they should, because that's the most overt, that's what we see, that's what we interact with. Unfortunately, I think in his case, his mental health is probably taking an even bigger hit. And I think most people underestimate how closely our mental and physical selves interact, so that when you start off having an assault on your body, on your physical body, it very quickly communicates to your mental health. And when you start having mental health assaults, such as he suffered, then they very quickly relay the information so that your physical health declines. So I've seen him suffer in many ways that the casual observer would probably miss. He lives in he's in prison. He's in a prison, inside a prison. He is in a very congested prison where bugs circulate ad nauseum, where any bug that's circulating in that population will probably be vulnerable to. So he's had repeated attacks of respiratory tract infections, some of which have been, not managed well. He's suffered. Right now, he's in need of dental care. He doesn't even want to think about asking for dental care for fear of what that will entail. His eyesight, he hasn't had any opportunity to have his vision checked, and knowing what, lighting conditions and other conditions in prison. So both his physical and mental health have really suffered. He's suffered isolation. And I think a lot of times people don't understand what that does to the physical body. But when somebody is not just isolated, but the few occurrences when they happen to be seen, there's, battalions around them, and they're being treated as though they are a highly dangerous criminal. What that does, what it communicates is that not only are you being physically isolated, but you are almost a social misfit. And this is very intentional. This is being done by the regime to make people feel that this is a very dangerous man, that he deserves to be where he is. So he suffers that. He suffers that he lives in seclusion, and that even when he needs help, he doesn't come forward to get it because he knows what that is going to entail. I mean, the first time he was taken to the doctor, he sat in an ambulance with, I think it was like 8 different heavily armed individuals surrounding him. And there was an armed vehicle in front of the ambulance, an armored vehicle behind the ambulance. He got into the doctor's room, and these officers had been instructed to stay with him the whole time. So he had no privacy. I mean, the indignity of appearing before your doctor, and you can't even communicate what your problem is because this is not private space. So, they follow him to laboratories, they follow him to imaging rooms, and they make it very clear that they're not going to let him out of their sight because those are the instructions they've been given. So when he has a physical ailment or even a psychological ailment, he has to think twice whether he should subject himself to that kind of treatment so that he can get care. So not only is he getting inadequate care, but I think his mental health is such that he really doesn't feel that he should come forward and seek for that care. And the longer this stays with that kind of isolation, not to mention what is being said about him in the media, I think people underestimate the links between physical ill health and mental ill health.
How widespread this kind of treatment is. We know about Dr. Besigye because it's a story that's well documented at the best of times, but I guess his case is representative of the general situation. How widespread is it, and who are the victims by and large?
Thank you so much. And I would say that we are looking at Uganda, but we are also looking at the region that has really borrowed or tried to borrow bad manners from the kind of repression and authoritarian practices that we are seeing in Uganda. As we speak, in Tanzania, we have the leader of opposition party, Tundu Lissu, who is also in prison and cannot be released on bail because he's facing treason-related charges. And we are seeing what happened to Kizza Besigye on the soils of Kenya did not just happen to Kizza Besigye. Few months before his abduction and rendition, there were 36 members of his party who were arbitrarily arrested in Kisumu, city in Western Kenya, forced back to Uganda through the border, and charged with different, terrorism-related offenses. Most of them were beaten, tortured, and the offense is that they were in Kenya doing, training, which they were being accused were, to actually carry out terrorism-related offenses back in Uganda. We have cases of people who are abducted, like Sam Mugumya, another political activist who is still incarcerated, and lawyers like Aaron Kizza are really pushing for their production in court. We have cases that go back into years of people just getting abducted in Uganda just because of their expression. Some of them because of what they post on social media platforms. Some of them it's because of their political associations. We have a bodyguard to one of the political or leading political figures, Bobby Wine, Robert Chagulanyi. One of his bodyguards was abducted, and later on, the first son who is also the chief of defense forces, posted that he was in his custody, and also posted photos of him looking all tortured and beaten. So we are seeing some level of impunity. We are seeing levels in which we have made it, or the government, the state, the executive has made it very normal, very common to abuse rights, to violate people, but also make it public. And the judiciary is also in it, because once you delay justice, once you keep on going to court and nothing is moving, you have a political prisoner who has been in jail since November, and the case is not moving. What are you saying about free and fair trial for this person? So these violations are, a sign of the levels of impunity in Uganda, and something that we must campaign to stop.
Olive, I don't know how much Dr. Besigye has talked about his relationship with President Museveni in the past. I'm just curious what happened between the two of them. Dr. Besigye was his physician and probably friend as well. What caused the fallout between the two?
Thank you, Peter. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, but he did indeed talk about what happened, and he continues to talk about it. And it's not very complex to understand. There was a very clear pact when the National Resistance Army came into town, and there was jubilation, and the country thought, believed that we had seen the last of terrible pages, and that we were really, there was a sense that now we turned a new leaf, and the contract was clear. They had what they call the 10-point program that stipulated what should happen to the country, the kind of freedoms that had been denied to Ugandans that were now being brought in, the kind of developments that should happen, so that once that pact started to, once President Museveni started to go against that pact, that was really the beginning. It's not secret. For instance, the very things that we're talking about here, opponents being turned into enemies of the state when they really shouldn't be, when it's, one should be free to express an opinion, a political opinion. That was very strong in that pact. For instance, the free and fair elections, and that Ugandans shouldn't have leaders forced on them, but they should choose freely. That was very clear in that pact. And what did we see, or what did Dr. Kizza Besigye and his colleagues see shortly after that was that, yes, elections could be manipulated. Yes, public resources could be taken for personal use. Yes, if you didn't like somebody's opinion, you could lock them up indefinitely. And those were the kind of things that he started to object to, and to say, no, this is not why we went to the bush. This is not why we fought. This is not why lots of our colleagues died in this war, and Ugandans deserve better. And I think that President Museveni couldn't face the truth that he'd gone against all of what they'd agreed upon, and that he couldn't face the challenge coming from somebody that was very close to him. Because I think it would have been one thing if it was, and indeed, there were challenges coming from outside of the NRA, of the National Resistance Army and movement, which it became afterwards. And I think those voices he could very easily dismiss. But how was he going to dismiss the voice of somebody that had actually been his political commissar, that knew what the pact was, and that it was written? It wasn't something that they just said. They actually had documented it. And then the violations were also equally documented. So that really is what happened and what continues to happen. And as long as Dr. Kizza Besigye and lots and lots of other opposition leaders don't keep quiet about it, they're going to face the kind of treatment that he's facing.
Olive, do you think that what's happening to your brother is coming directly from orders from State House, from President Museveni himself, or could it just be over-exuberant junior officials that are going beyond the call of duty?
I think in the first several hours after he was arrested, he was kidnapped, if something had happened that President Museveni was unaware of, he surely would have been aware of it, certainly within 24 hours. And Dr. Kizza Besigye and Haji Obed Mutari were held incommunicado way beyond that period. So I'm sure he would have known, and if he wanted this to take a different path, he certainly would have caused it to take a different path. And over the months, in fact, when the Supreme Court ruling came out, President Museveni was out of the country, and he came back, and he was very vocal. He was very explicit about the fact that he absolutely opposed the ruling and that he preferred that Dr. Kizza Besigye and others that were in that same bracket should be kept under the court martial. So he's fully aware. It's not something that is happening, somewhat to the side, and he's not aware. So when you have your top military officials saying things like, "Oh, I am going to hang him. We are going to hang him," this is not idle talk. This is not, there's nothing funny about it. This is very, very intentional, very well calibrated torture to say that somebody that is in custody that you have full control of, you actually plan to kill. Some of these things really, you couldn't make it up. It's not even in a horror movie. And so I think that he's very aware. I can't say for sure which orders he gives and which orders the first son gives, but clearly it's something that he could not possibly say was happening and he wasn't aware of.
As we get closer to the elections, there's normally, and we've seen it across the continent, an increase in activity, making it difficult for opposition figures and journalists. Do you see this as a phase, or is this something that's just going to get worse and that the elections are just a moment in time, but the problems continue to increase and will go beyond the elections?
I think elections, are a trigger in a way that I'll give an example of Tanzania, whereby, the state has disqualified the main opposition party from running for the elections, which will be in October. The leader of the opposition is in prison. So you can already see this is the state candidate who's running for, re-election, going into a declaration where they'll be declared, the winner. In Uganda, similar thing you're seeing, whereby in the election atmosphere, one of the very prominent opposition leader, Kizza Besigye, is in prison. If you look at, Bobi Wine, every other day you find military police, camping outside his party headquarters, various intimidation tactics that are there to really, intimidate the parties and make them weak, or even make, formidable candidates not want to be associated with these parties. And after elections, we see now, it shifts, because a person is already re-elected, not even re-elected, declared the winner. That is what we say, because there is no election. It's just a declaration of who has won, and most of the time it's the incumbent. And now it becomes, looking after those who are working on pertinent issues such as corruption, those who are opposed to, government projects that are used to siphon funds and something like that. And you ask a pertinent question about regional bodies and especially the African Union and its organs. I'm thinking, personally, I think over time, we have become our own enemies, in that the people who are running the shows in these organs, the chairmanship or chairpersonship of these organs, are the same people who are using each other, who are coordinating with each other, cooperating with each other to oppress their people. I said earlier that we are learning bad manners from each other. I say Tanzania elections are in October. Uganda elections are in January, and we are seeing similarities in how they handle the opposition, how they handle the media, how they handle even the least known, social media, influencer who would just want, to ridicule or criticize, a particular politician or action by, the most powerful politicians. Then you see Kenya coming into elections in 2027. These are three East African countries running or going into an election season, but then the kind of repression, the kind of cross-border transnational repression we are seeing is very similar. You can almost tell that whatever happens in Kenya, whatever happened to Kizza Besigye definitely was sanctioned by Uganda. Whatever happened in Kenya by Kizza Besigye, definitely the Kenyan state was involved, because there is no way you can take somebody of the stature of Kizza Besigye from a hotel in Nairobi, move them in a vehicle or whichever way, cross the border without the state knowing. The same way, whatever happened to Agatha Tuhaire and Boniface Mwangi in Tanzania, that is, a Kenyan and a Ugandan on Tanzania soil, being arbitrarily arrested, tortured, and all manner of things. We have seen a Tanzanian, abducted in Nairobi, wanting to be, renditioned back to Tanzania, and we had, citizens or Kenyans really, helping her, to escape that. We had a Kenyan abducted in Tanzania, a social media, influencer, Mwabili Mwagodi, just a few weeks ago. So we are seeing this regional, repression happening, but again, we are seeing the organs that are supposed to be speaking out, the Africa Union organs, very quiet. We have an African Commission on Human and People's Rights. We will continue petitioning and speaking to some of these organs so that at least they become not just aware, but stronger to continue condemning some of these things, so that at least we know that there is a place to run to for support. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start wrapping up this conversation now, and I want to start again with you, Olive. What do you think Dr. Besigye wants the people of Uganda and the continent to know about his situation, and why he's doing the sacrificing that he has done his whole life?
Thank you, Peter. Here, I guess I'd be guessing in a way, but what I've heard him say consistently is that while for the moment this seems to be his lot, he's actually not. There are lots of other people that are in the kind of situation that he is, but they don't have a voice, they are not known, nobody's looking for them. And so he sometimes expresses anxiety about the fact that there's this focus on him, and it sort of takes away from the broader problem of political persecution for those that are in opposition. So I think one point that he would make is, yes, he's suffered this, but he'd like for people to look more broadly and to say, this is not about Kizza Besigye. And in fact, sometimes he says, look, even if I drop dead today, God forbid, it's not going to take away, it's not going to make the cases that I've been talking about vanish. It's not going to make the fact that citizens have lost their citizenship. They no longer have a voice in their own country, and that should be the focus, that the idea of state capture is very real. The idea that a small group of people can take power from the rest of the country, take power, determine who lives, who dies, determine who gets resources and who doesn't, determine where they take the country. And so he is sometimes, you can tell that he's anxious to say, look, I appreciate that people are concerned about me, and I'd like for them to be concerned about me, but they should be concerned about all Ugandans that are facing persecution, and the fact that Uganda's future is at stake. It's not just his future that's at stake, it's Uganda's future, that a small group of people have an agenda to take the state where they want to take it. and it's not in the interests of Ugandans. So I think that's what he would probably say. Yeah.
Final thoughts from you. What next for Uganda if these kinds of cases continue?
I think with a transition, because there is a transition that is coming to Uganda, and it is very soon, we hope that people will be able to take back the power. Like Olive said, you do not want a country where citizens have lost that citizenship, where they are in a country, but the country does not belong to them. But I see a lot of people who are resolute. The last time I visited Kizza Besigye in prison, he was very resolute. He was very determined that change is going to come. This is not the first time he's gone through all that he's going through. The last time we were there, that was 1st September. Of course, only Obeid Lutale was able to see us because, Kizza Besigye was unwell. But again, the message of, accepting or being happy and emboldened by the solidarity. And I hear this across Uganda. Kizza Aaron here is one person who's actually gone through an ordeal just because of, looking for justice or fighting for justice. And so many other young Ugandans who, despite there not being a large enough movement already that can come out, already show their resoluteness. They already show that they are ready to continue demanding for, not just accountability, but for processes that, grant citizens their rights. So we pray and hope that, it will not just be Uganda, but Uganda will be emblematic change for what we want to see in East Africa, for what we want to see in the region, and end to the authoritarian practices led by people. Thank you.
To all of you, thank you so much indeed for joining us on Channel Africa Conversations, and your contributions very important in not just telling the story of Dr. Besigye, but I think the state of affairs in Uganda and the thoughts of many. Roland Ebole, regional researcher for Uganda and Tanzania at Amnesty International and observer of Dr. Besigye's trial, thank you for joining us. Dr. Olive Kobusingye, thank you very much indeed for joining us, medical doctor, surgeon, and a sister to Dr. Besigye. And that's where we come to the end of this edition of Channel Africa Conversations. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did, unpacking the situation in Uganda through the lens of the case of Dr. Kizza Besigye, who many say represents some of the challenges that a lot of Ugandans in opposition, journalists alike, are facing in the country at this time. Before I go, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts on this particular program, this particular episode, please comment in the comment section below. We'd love to get your thoughts. But most importantly, we want to know what you'd like to see on Channel Africa Conversations. Who do you want us to talk to, and what do you want us to talk about? So you're probably seeing on your screen now our email addresses and also our social media pages where you can contribute your thoughts. Once again, thank you very much indeed for tuning in, and we look forward to our next conversation and sharing that with you in the very near future. Take care.
You are watching Channel Africa Conversations.